Hello, welcome to another live, YouTube live. Here I am. You might be able to hear the neighbour's dogs behind me. That's what you get with a live class. So here we are, another class, and every week I'm here every Monday, and I pick a different topic. And today's topic is all about understanding ourselves at a deeper level. And of course, there are many levels and there are many ways to understand ourselves. Though today, specifically, I'm going to be talking about something we talk about in NLP. So, neuro linguistic programming, understanding our unconscious filters, understanding how we communicate to ourselves and others, and also using some useful tools and techniques to do so. And in NLP, we have something that we call representational systems. And this is something that I was talking about in a workshop last week. And we were identifying what is our preferred representational system. And essentially, what that means is like our sense, the sense that we prefer to pick up on information, the one that makes it a lot easier, that we find easier. And that's how we tend to filter everything in the world, all the information that comes to us. Of course, we have all our senses, the majority of us, though we tend to have one or two that we find a little bit easier or that we're able to tune into easier or connect with easier above others. So even though I can see, I can hear, I can feel, so I'll keep it simple. I'll talk about three main ones in today's class, but there is another one that we call auditory digital, and that's when there's a lot of self-talk and self-dialogue. But the three main ones, so what we see, what we hear, what we feel, and also what we smell, what we taste. But I'll just keep it simple and keep it to those three. And obviously, like, I can do all those things, though sometimes there are ones that I find a lot easier than others. And this may be the case for you too. So, for example, someone who is very aware of what they see and what they see in front of them, what's in their environment. They see the colors, the shapes, they notice it a lot. When they're in environments when there's a lot going on, there's a lot of visual stuff happening. Maybe there's bright colors and shapes, and maybe there's a TV in the background. Sometimes that can get very distracting. So when you're having a conversation with someone and you can see a TV in the background, the people who are very, very aware of what they see, that would be a huge distraction. That TV going on in the background, and their attention will go there rather than to the person that they're having a conversation with. That's one example. And when this is generally speaking, this is not the case for every single person who's very aware of what they see, though generally speaking, when someone has that sense extra heightened, that there's a tendency to talk a bit quicker, the hand movements can be a little bit more upwards rather than down here. So there's a faster pace. They like to they're quick on what they notice, and the visual aspect's important, and they're quick in how they express themselves. Not always the case, though that can be a tendency. And knowing this can be really interesting because when there's this knowledge and there's this awareness, then we can make it easier for ourselves. We can make it easier for ourselves in terms of like how we study, how we care for ourselves, how we communicate in relationships and relate in relationships. It can affect many different areas. So I'll talk a little bit more about what each one can do, but I'll just go through all the different three senses that we're focusing on in today's class. So the next one, auditory, what we hear, the sound. So when I first started this live, there was a lot of dogs barking in the background. And when someone is very auditory, very connected, very in tune with what they hear, then there's the tendency to get distracted when there's background noise. Like if there's something going on in the background, if there is music playing, or if there's music that they don't like, that can feel really unsettling. or music that they love. That can be incredibly uplifting. And the hand movements and the speed of talking is a little bit slower compared to visual. And there's this heightened awareness. I know a lot of musicians that are very in tune with what they hear, that they have that sense, like extra defined, like they can notice all the distinctions, they can notice all the subtleties there, they can notice where the sound is coming from, whether that's loud or soft, or whether that's a sound that has a like a fast rhythm or a slow rhythm. They can know the pitch, they know all these little distinctions that perhaps someone who is not so sensitive to that sense would pay attention to. So it's interesting to know. And yeah, a lot of musicians that I know, that they're very in tune with what they hear. So that is a sense that is extra strong for them, compared to artists that perhaps have more of that visual sense extra developed, and they can really pay attention to subtle differences in colors and shades and light and shadow. And when they observe things, they don't just see a black car, they see the shape, they see the different shades of black even. They notice all the different distinctions there, what we call submodalities in NLP. And then the third one I want to focus on in today's class is kinesthetic. Kinesthetic, that is when people are very connected with what they feel, the sensations, like how things feel are important, and they tend to talk a lot slower, and the hand movements tend to be a lot more like further down, closer to the belly. They tend to breathe deeper, whereas like people who are very visual, they tend to breathe a lot more shallow. But the kinesthetic, of course, this is generally speaking. As I said, this is not the case for every single person, though generally speaking, there's this tendency to want to talk a lot slower, and the breath goes down to the belly, and they're very connected with that intuitive gut feeling, like what feels right. And when they walk into rooms, like they can sense, they can feel if something's off, or if there's been an argument, or if it's a space that feels open and light and airy. Like they pick up on all these energetics and all these senses of like what they sense in terms of how things feel, like whether that's physically or also the energetics of it and their intuition. And people who are very connected with the kinesthetics, like how they learn, I will talk about this more in terms of all of them, but just briefly, like it's all about the experience. Experiencing is important for them. So those are the three main ones: so visual, auditory, kinesthetic. What we see, what we hear, and what we feel. Of course, we got olfactory and gustatory, which is the smell and the taste, but I won't focus on those today. And then, as I mentioned very briefly earlier, that there is another one that we use in NLP, which is called auditory digital. That's when there's a very strong internal dialogue, and those people really want to make sense of things, that they want to have a plan, they want to have a schedule, they want to have everything clear, they want to understand why. Like, why is something like that, or what, like what's the meaning behind that, and like why is something important, like what's the why behind that, and everything. They tend, of course, again, generally speaking, they tend to want to have this logical step-by-step process. So, but I won't talk so much about that today, just focusing on visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So the sense of seeing, the sense of hearing, and the sense of feeling, like sensing. So what can we do with this information? Now that we can apply this in so many different ways. We can apply this to, if we're learning, if we're studying something, then if we have one of those that is slightly stronger than the other, or one that we feel comes to us a lot more easily compared to the others, then we can use that. So if we're learning something new and perhaps like we're very aware of what we see, and we notice what we see a lot, and we're aware of colors and shapes and all of that, then use that. So if you're studying something, if you're learning something, make it colorful. Like make a diagram, make a like one thing that really helped me when I was studying for my trainer's training many years ago is actually being an artist. Like I am aware of colors and shapes and all of that. So I put everything that I needed to learn onto posters, and I put colors. I outlined things in different colors. I drew little symbols and little pictures to represent different sleight of mouth patterns, like different linguistic patterns that I needed to remember off by heart. So that really helped in order having that visual reference there. So that's in terms of learning. Now, in terms of how we care for ourselves, this is where it gets interesting. How we care for ourselves, how we look after ourselves, how we love ourselves. If that sense is very strong, then how can we love ourselves even more, care for ourselves even more by focusing on that sense? Of course, we want to use all the senses if we have them available, though perhaps there's a way visually to create that self-care. So like making sure that your environment, that you clear away the clutter, that visually that there's not lots of things lying about. So you create that sense of calmness and care for yourself by clearing away clutter. Or you have a beautiful photo or a picture or a painting that when you look at it, it makes you feel uplifted, it makes you feel a sense of warmth, it makes you feel a sense of love, or an inspiring picture about self-love or just love in general, that you have that as a reference. You fill your environment, you dress yourself, you use curtains and cushions and things in colors that help you to feel however you want to feel, that those colors represent the emotions that you want to tune into. There are many different ways. These are just like little examples, but there are many different ways. A post-it note with a phrase, with an affirmation, you can place that somewhere. That's a visual reference there. Some kind words to yourself, that you put that up on the mirror, you put that up on the wall, you place it somewhere that you can see it every day, and you have that visual reference there. So by all means, brainstorm some more. Like if there are any other ways that you can think, like how can you care for yourself and love yourself through that sense? Having a photo of yourself, having a photo of your younger self, placing it somewhere that you can see it every day, and send love to your younger self. There are many different ways. So that would be a visual way of caring for yourself. Now, moving over to auditory. So what we hear, if we're very in tune with sounds, then we can use that to our advantage. So first of all, if we're studying, if we're learning something, then we can perhaps do that through audio. Listen to podcasts, listen to audio teachings, listen to things that we want to learn through audio. We can also use music. So perhaps sometimes having some background music can be helpful, or perhaps having a complete quiet surroundings, like taking away any distractions, like putting your phone on silent, which I always have my phone on silent. It's always on silent. Otherwise the distraction's too much. Having just like creating that environment. Like if I want to relax and care for myself, then I will really like notice like what music am I listening to? Does the music inspire me? Does it help me to feel whatever it is I want to connect to, whether that's energized or relaxed or a sense of well-being overall, like using sounds in that way. Now, in terms of self-care, and especially with the auditory, self-talk is really important, and how we talk to ourselves and what we're saying to ourselves. So getting into the habit of using words and phrases that help to encourage, help to uplift, help to empower, help to give ourselves some reassurance and soothe ourselves. So saying to ourselves, you did great. You did great. I got you. It's okay. Little phrases like that. It's going to be fine. Many different phrases that we can use, like finding little phrases that you can say to yourself. One of my favorites that I use, and I use with other people, and I use it with myself, is thank you for being you. And that's just such a lovely phrase to say. And another way, which is, I recommend it for everyone, even if someone has the strong sense of sound, auditory sound, or not, is using the power of your voice in terms of catching those moments when you're more your unconscious mind is more susceptible to receiving that information, which is when you're just waking up or just going to sleep. So in those moments, that's when the unconscious mind is listening extra carefully, and having an audio on your phone. So I have it on my phone and I have it as my alarm clock. And that audio of myself talking affirmations wakes me up in the morning. This is a great way to reprogram the unconscious mind. So when you wake up, you hear the sound of your own voice, which is one of the most powerful ways to use hypnosis, is self-hypnosis. So the power of your own voice in those moments of waking up. And you can use whatever phrase, whatever affirmation that feels positive for you. So that's a really useful one to use. And then moving over to the kinesthetics. So if we're learning something new, the kinesthetics, that's when we're doing things. So that's when if people are very kinesthetic, they can hear the talk, or they could, if they're very visual, they could watch the video, but until they actually do it and practice it, that's when they'll really learn. That's when they'll really remember what it is that they're learning. So like getting practical, like hands-on experience, getting in there, experiencing, practicing, doing it for yourself. And it's all about the feeling in that as well. And then in terms of self-care and really like looking after yourself with the sense of touch, the kinesthetics, then you can bring that in. So self-massage, holding, somatic practices where you're swaying side to side, you're holding yourself, you give yourself a hug, you gently stroke your arms, anything that soothes. Like a wonderful way is just simply just bring your hands to the chest and soothe yourself in that way, or just placing your hands there. These are all ways that kinesthetically that we can bring some care to ourselves. Being aware of what's in the environment. Do you have things that help you to feel comfortable and feel nurtured and loved? Soft blankets and cushions and soft lighting, and creating that environment that nourishes and nurtures you, whatever that is. Anything that's to do with feeling, sensation, and listening to your gut instinct. If something feels off, listen to that. If something doesn't quite feel right, listen to that. If something feels exciting, but terrifying, but exciting at the same time, but there's this like nudge pushing you in that direction, and it's like, yeah, that's what I really want. Like there's this bucket list goal that you want to achieve, even though it feels scary, like go for it, like listen to your intuition. So paying attention to that. So these representational systems, like some people say that whatever your preferred representational system is, that's what it is, and that's set in stone. And I don't believe that, because I really feel that, and what I've seen and experienced in 11 years of working with clients and also with training new students that it can change. Like as we grow and evolve and as we develop our senses and our sensitivity to different senses, it can shift and change. And we can have certain senses that might be more prominent in some situations compared to others. Though generally speaking, and overall, usually there's one or two that is a lot easier for us compared to the others. There's one or two that is our go-to. There's one or two that's like, oh yeah, I'm very, very connected to feelings, or I'm very like aware of what things look like, or I'm very in tune with the sounds. We can also become aware of what our preferred sense is according to what language we use. So you might have noticed that I was using specific language, the senses we connect to, connection, feeling. So if someone's very kinesthetic, they might use words and phrases along the lines of, I'll catch you later, or that feels good. Whereas someone who is very visual, they may use words and phrases like, I see what you mean, or that looks good. Or someone who's very in tune with sounds, so I'm using the word tune, they might use the words and phrases, for example, that sounds good. That sounds good. Any words and phrases to do with the sense, that can be an indication of how their mind is processing information and what is their preferred way to process that. Like how are they filtering it out and all the information that's coming towards them and what is their preferred way to make sense of that. So becoming aware of this can be really useful, and we can apply it to so many different ways. We can, as I mentioned, like learning, self-care, relationships as well, being aware of how we prefer to process information and how we make sense of things. And it's a two-way thing. So like there can be a way that we prefer to receive the information and make sense of it, and then there can be a preferred way that we express that to others as well. So everyone's different here. There can be differences in that. And then that could be different to whoever your partner is, or whoever your siblings, or your parents, or family members, or friends are. Like everyone's different. So if you know that, I'll tell you a story. Many, many, many years ago, I was in a relationship and I knew that the person I was with was very visual. Like what they saw, and they were like what they were seeing was very important, and any visual distraction, any TVs in the background, all of that, like that could be a big distraction. So then they wouldn't even be in the conversation anymore. They would be glued to the screen if we were in a bar and there was a TV up there. So knowing that, then what I did is that in order to improve communication between us, that when we were booking a holiday, that rather than just like typing out a long list of text as the auditory digital part of myself at the time wanted to have everything clear and ordered and structured and lots of information and go into all the details, and there was all this text, and I was just about to send it and I thought, oh, this is going to be overwhelmed for them. They're not going to understand any of this. So I deleted it all and I just put option 1, 2, 3, and I just put some pictures and then the link of the different options to then go and have a look at the website and the actual holiday that we were looking at. So having the pictures, like 3 pictures, that was really helpful. And then the person at the time was able to go, okay, yeah, 2 or 3, or like, yeah, that's the one I want to explore further. Let's find out what we both want to do. But that was a way to communicate it, by using the visuals. And with someone else, it might be different. But we can use this to the benefit of everyone. It's like learning to speak the language of the other person. It's the same with the 5 love languages. You might have heard of those. If not, you can Google it. It's the same. It's very similar. So obviously that's not all to do with the senses, but when you're learning the 5 love languages, you're learning to understand what their preferred way of giving and receiving love is. And it could be different. Maybe they like to give love in a way and receive love in another way, but usually it can be quite similar. So, like knowing all these little things that can really help us to improve relationships, improve how we care for ourselves, improve how we learn information. This can also be really useful in terms of how we learn things about the news, like listening to the news, watching the news, taking in information about the world, which it's important to be aware of what's happening in the world, though paying attention to that. And if there's one sense that is particularly strong for us, then if we're listening to anything that could be potentially upsetting or triggering or negative or that wouldn't really necessarily help us in a positive way, then we can choose to take in news using another sense as a primary focus. So, for example, if someone is very kinesthetic and the feelings is important, then perhaps something that doesn't create so much of an emotional impact. So perhaps they could just read some black and white text, like a couple of headlines, and then they've got some of the information. If someone is very visual, then perhaps watching moving videos and watching things on the actual TV or online in terms of videos, maybe that's too much. Maybe that creates too much of an impact. So again, they could just read some black and white text. If someone's very auditory and the sounds and like hearing sounds is very important, so perhaps they could turn down the volume when they watch videos. That perhaps they, again, like black and white text, just like reading some articles, some headlines can be a useful way just to turn down the dial on the intensity if we find it overwhelming. Everyone's different, though it's interesting to notice like what feels good, what doesn't, and how can I use this information to improve how I connect with myself, how I love myself, how I connect with others, how I learn, and how I take in the news. So this can be applied to many, many different ways, many different things. But I just wanted to share that this week. This was something I talked about in the workshop last week. That was like a little snippet of ended up being like over 2 hours worth of information that we shared in the workshop and different exercises. So there was a lot that we did, and it's always interesting. So that was one thing that I want to talk about today, and there's a couple more things I want to share. So at the time of recording this, at the time of this going live, this week there's a couple of events coming up. And if you are in the area, Barcelona, Vilanova, Geltrú area, then there's a couple of events. If you're watching the replay and this has gone, then check out my website because there'll be other events, there'll be other things, and I put everything in the meetup group. So on my website, the first page that you reach, there's a link to the meetup group, and I put all the events there, so you can find out what's happening. So in terms of this week, Thursday, the 16th of November, 2023. There's a women's circle. So in Barcelona, if you're in Barcelona, if you're a woman, there's a women's circle, and this will be a wonderful topic. There's been a lot of interest in this topic, all about pleasure and guilt. Do we take time out for ourselves? Do we enjoy the pleasures of life? Do we feel guilty for doing so? And this is especially a hot topic for mothers. So this is open for any woman, any age, any stage of her life, though this is especially a hot topic for mothers because there can be this guilt of needing time out and having a break from the children, but then also feeling guilty for doing so. So this is something that is incredibly important, to come together in community, a group of women coming together and really supporting each other and talking about this, discussing this, like really getting to reflect on like what it is for us, and then hear shares from other women. When we hear shares from other women, it's not just hearing other people's experiences. It's like, wow, we realize the common thread between us all. We realize that we are part of a community, that we have this extended tribe, if you like, this community that we are part of simply just for being a woman. Like there's this connection with all the other women. And even if there are slightly different experiences, but there's common thread, and that we can really recognize that. So on Thursday, that will be in Artemis. I will put the link after this replay. I'll put the link in the description, and it'll be a wonderful evening. There'll be candlelight, there'll be music, there'll be cushions, blankets, nice drinks and snacks, and a lovely evening to be held and to witness and hear and learn from other women also. So that's on Thursday. I'll also include some embodiment practices to really come back to the senses and connect with pleasure. And in terms of like the taste of things, we'll be exploring that, doing some mindfulness in terms of connecting with the senses. And then also there'll be a guided NLP visualization to create balance and harmony within the unconscious mind. So that's on Thursday. Then on Friday the 17th, this Friday, there is a dance session at Labra in Villanova i Geltrú. So if you're in the Barcelona area, if you're in the Sitges, Villanova area, then this is a wonderful opportunity to simply dance and celebrate life, and to really come back to the essence of who you are. Like, it's not just about dancing. It's, yes, like we can release stress, we can release emotions, work somatically with the body, moving the physical body, promote wellness by doing all of that. And also we wake up to that life within. When we move the body, we move the energy flowing through the body, and we start to really wake up to that and connect with that. And it's like remembering that spark within, and to do it in a fun way. Like, it doesn't need to be serious or boring. We can have fun with it and dance. And so I'm providing this space. There'll be an open dance floor that you can come, you can dance however you like. I will give some gentle guidance, like a few little starting points, but not a huge amount. The most important thing is that you have the space to dance, like no one's watching, and to do so in a safe space, and to really just like let go, because so often in life we're just holding and tense, and worries and stresses, and everything's up here, and holding on to lots of things, whether that's responsibilities or emotions or worries, whatever that is. And Friday evening is like, oh, I can just let that go. Shake the body, move the body, dance, celebrate, and just have fun with it. So that's on Friday at 7 at Labra, and it's a short journey from Barcelona. If you want to come from Barcelona, you're more than welcome. That will be 12 euros on the door, but if you want to save money, then it's 10 euros. The same with the women's circle. If you book in advance, you save money, because usually it's 20 euros, but if you book in advance, it's 15 euros. So if you need more information, if you have questions, you can send me a WhatsApp, +34 6226 986 73. So that's everything happening this week. And then there's another workshop on the 2nd of December, but I'll talk more about that next week. So there is information in the description, which you can find out, but I'll talk more about it next week. So that's everything that's coming up. And again, if you're listening to the replay that the time's gone after these workshops, then check out my website, www.emmabradford.net. There's stuff on there that you can can find out what's current. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being here. And I'd love to hear in the comments section, like, what sense do you find easier? Like, what do you notice more of? Like, do you see lots, or do you hear lots, or do you feel lots? Or maybe it's some of the others. Smell, taste. Or maybe there's a lot of internal dialogue and you want to make sense of things, the auditory, digital. So I'd love to hear in the comments section. And if you found this useful, please do share. Share with a loved one, and make sure that you click subscribe so you get these updates whenever I post new videos. And I'll connect with you next week. Much love.